Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Sunday, July 31st, and I wanted to make this video real quick. I was just kind of bored. I was hanging out with my nephew, and I wanted to try to beat back some of this revisionism that's been coming from the right regarding the history of 20th century European fascism. Jonah Goldberg from the National Review, a right-wing publication, wrote a book 3 years ago titled Liberal Fascism, The Secret History of the Left, from Mussolini to the Politics of Meaning, a book which I read and found absolutely laughable because I've studied the subject of fascism quite extensively for a very long time, partly because I come from a nation in East Africa, Eritrea, that was invaded by Mussolini, so it's a subject that's very near and dear to me. He displaced thousands of Ethiopians and Eritreans, and I personally don't like revisionism when it comes to a part of history that's near and dear to me and affects me and my people. So, I wanted to start off by giving you guys, actually, the whole video is me giving you guys some real reading material on the history of fascism. This is especially good for conservatives who read the book, digested it, think that fascism is really a history, really an ideology of the left when it is not. It never has been, never will be. Just some reading material to give you guys so that you can actually educate yourself on the totalitarian history of right-wing fascism. Because those of us on the left know that there has been totalitarianism on the left. Soviet communism, Stalin, Chairman Mao, Gaddafi, and you can keep going down the line. Anyway, so just to give you guys some reading material, the first bit I'm going to give you is Michael Parenti, Black Shirts and Reds, The Rational Fascism and the Overthrow of Communism. This is kind of a beginner's book. It doesn't really talk about fascism so much as it does the overthrow of communism, but it does give you a brief overview of how the fascists got into power. Michael Parenti, a man who I know personally and have a lot of love and respect for, has always said that politics is about the rational manipulation of irrational symbols and ideologies. And that's what fascism is. They use very irrational ideologies to push through some very rational and ruthless policies. So again, this is Dr. Michael Parenti's Black Shirts and Reds, Rational Fascism and the Overthrow of Communism. The next, Behemoth, The Structure and Practice of National Socialism from 1933 to 1944 by Franz Neumann, a German Jew and socialist who was basically run out of Germany for very obvious reasons, but was later employed by the U.S. government to help overthrow the National Socialist regime. This book is considered by C. Wright Mills, a Marxist intellectual, and by many social scientists as one of the most definitive and well-researched catalogs on the National Socialist regime that was basically in power from 1933 to about 1945. Really, really long book. Takes a while to read, but it is very, very well researched. It goes into the social policies, economic policies, foreign policies of the National Socialist regime. And again, a very authoritative source, something worth reading, especially to my conservative compatriots out there. Now, the next book here is one that's more of a purist text. And I say purist in the sense that it's a much more honest book. What it does is it takes how fascism today is a word that's just been thrown around and shows how fascism actually operated. And it puts blood into the historiographical cataloging of this subject. And it really goes into how it operated and how syncretic it truly was, and its philosophies, and its intellectual properties. And it's called The Anatomy of Fascism by Robert O. Paxton. This is actually a historian who wrote a review of Jonah Goldberg's book and basically called it for the laughable bullshit that it really is. And I was actually happy to see that I found some of the same things wrong with Jonah's book that Robert did. So a great book, very honest book, and it talks about fascism then and what's considered to be fascism now and how it operates in Europe and America. Now this next one, a little different. This is actually a more adventuresome book. It's called The Plot to Seize the White House, The Shocking True Story of the Conspiracy to Overthrow FDR. For those of you that know, in 1933 there was a conspiracy by many businessmen and many right-wing organizations to overthrow the presidency of FDR and put in a fascist dictatorship. The leader that they wanted to run that dictatorship was a man named General Smedley Darlington Butler, who was actually the whistleblower because he loved his country way too much to allow it to go down the way other Western nations went down, such as Italy and Germany. So it's a great book. You can actually check out some documentaries on YouTube about it. It's written by a man named Jules Archer, and it was one of the contributors to the book was a journalist named George Seldes, S-E-L-D-E-S, who actually has a book out called Facts and Fascism. I suggest you looking him up. That's George Seldes, S-E-L-D-E-S, and this is Jules Archer, a soldier and journalist. And the last book that I wanted to show, and this one has more to do with with this country, not so much the history of classical fascism, but the rise of what could be considered modern American fascism. And it's titled American Fascist, The Christian Right and the War in America. Written by a journalist named Chris Hedges. This is a man who's been a foreign correspondent for 20 years, graduated with a degree, a master's in divinity from Harvard, Harvard Divinity School. He graduated from seminary. He did a lot of research for this book. He went to a lot of evangelical churches, talked with a lot of evangelical church members, has researched the leaders of the movement, the John Hagees, the Tony Perkins, Jerry Falwells. It was written back in 2007, and it talks about how, well, in America we're in a little bit of trouble here as far as what the Christian right is trying to do, the very unconstitutional acts they're doing in the Air Force, in the schools, in government, and I could go on and on. So this is just, this is not meant to completely refute Jonah Goldberg. I don't have that much time right now. I might do that some other time in the future. But I wanted to just give a few books people should look at if they really want to understand the history of classical fascism and even modern fascism, and sort of overthrow this revisionism that's coming from the right. I mean, they talk about taking personal responsibility. Maybe they should take personal responsibility for the real history of their actions. We on the left know that we got our dirt, they got their dirt too. Anyway, so I hope this works out for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Have a nice evening.